This week in the enterprise security news, BeyondTrust announces integration with SailPoint. CheckPoint launches CloudGuard, cloud-native security. CyberArk Alero enhancements provide secure privilege access for remote users. Digital Shadows announces new capabilities to identify and remediate unwanted code exposure, and more. In our second segment, we welcome back Farah Mavatuna. He's the CEO of NetSparker. We're going to talk about debunking DAST myths and short-term strategies for fixing vulnerabilities. In our final segment, we welcome Jason Fruge. Did I say that right? Fruge, Vice President, Business Application of Application Cybersecurity at Onapsis. Talk about emerging security threats to your digital supply chain and probably something about cigars. You're a big cigar guy. Stay tuned for all that and more on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly. The Viavi Solutions Observer Platform provides SecOps teams a powerful combination of comprehensive data for threat hunting and incident response that includes wire data analytics and enriched flow records. Using pure, unaltered packet and net flow, Observer presents views across the entire IT infrastructure with threat alert features including scope, impact, and advanced traffic profiling. Teams can use automated workflows to dive into high-fidelity network evidence and more quickly resolve issues, minimizing impact on customers, users, and business operations. Learn more about the Viavi Network Security Solution and download free resources at securityweekly.com/Viavi. That's VIAVI. You want to get the right things done for your security program. Sounds simple, but what are the right things for you? What does done mean? And how are you going to get there? Rapid7 realizes more than anyone how hard this can be. While Rapid7's Insight platform offers you industry-leading vulnerability management and detection and response solutions, their focus is on understanding where you are so that they can help you get where you're going. Visit securityweekly.com/Rapid7 to get started. Welcome to episode 188 of Enterprise Security Weekly for June 17th, 2020. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, joined by Mr. Matt Alderman. Matt, welcome.
Happy Wednesday. It's our last recording for like a week,
yes.
A little over a week. Yeah, because we have InfoSec World next week.
That's right. I got a little vacation time here and there, kind of spread out. It's nice to have a little break in some of the shows. We have to be on virtually, like during it's weird. The virtual conferences are just weird. I mean, no knock on InfoSec World. Everyone's virtual conference is just weird because you're not there, right? And we did our pre-recordings for InfoSec World yesterday, which was a lot of fun, but I was like, it would be so much more fun if we were together. I was saying that to my wife last night. I was like, we're on a panel. Like, I was trying to make jokes and stuff, but it's no substitute for actually being in the same room, which would have been awesome. Our panel, I thought, was really awesome.
It was. And the unfortunate part, or the fortunate part for you, is you could actually smoke your cigar during the pre-record that you couldn't have done on stage. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, I'm planning to be engaged throughout the summit on Monday for our piece, talking to Jennifer and the team, just to try to create some of that interaction, Paul. But you're right, it's hard because we're not physically there.
I also find it's hard too for virtual conferences to, I feel like they should have a pre-conference room, have a video playing or something where you can just go in and test it out, right? So when I'm actually attending the virtual event, what does it look like? How do I chat? Where do I chat? What does it look like? Does it work with this browser or that browser? That kind of thing. Just some advice if you're hosting a virtual conference. That'd be cool. Join our mailing list and receive your invite to our community Discord server by visiting securityweekly.com/subscribe. Click the join button. You also get notifications about all of our upcoming webcasts and virtual training. We are looking for high-quality guest suggestions for all of our podcasts. I actually just made public our list of show segments that we'd like to have coming up. It's kind of a sneak preview into a content schedule we're trying to fill out. I got one down out of over 50 different topics. So if you would like to appear on the show and talk about largely things technical, that doesn't have to be so much technical. They are very technical, mostly technical topics in there. There are some panels in there as well. So check social media for the link to that. I didn't create a redirect for it. Maybe we should. But all of the topics are out there. And we'll be seeking some of the authors of some of the tools and stuff like that to come on the shows. But if you have a suggestion, you can go to securityweekly.com/guests and submit that. On to the news for this week. I actually kind of wanted to start with Google to bring Microsoft Office and other apps to Chromebooks, which was interesting because Parallels made that announcement, which still does application virtualization, OS virtualization. Yes. They were one of the first ones. I remember playing with those in like the late 90s when that application first came out. I think this has repercussions for enterprises, right? Potentially very positive ones, as if you can get a Chromebook and still run your Office applications on it, it's kind of a neat platform to have instead of Windows. Of course, there's a lot of nuances in there. It creates an interesting option for that because you can get Chromebooks a lot cheaper. Although, if you want a really nice Chromebook, the specs and the price are like really about the same as any other laptop. I don't know if you've looked into it, Matt, but actually, when I looked into it for like enterprises, right? Like, so you want a new Dell. It's not Latitude, XPS, yeah. Right? So the Dell XPS, the Google Pixel Book, and a MacBook Air, right, are very, very similar in price and actually pretty similar on specs, right? They're all like 8th gen. You can get them all basically with 8th gen i7, 16 gigs of RAM. So, I mean, now with this announcement, I feel like they've really kind of leveled the playing field in the laptop game. Also, if we start seeing enterprise adoption of things like Chromebooks, Chrome OS is going to come under some scrutiny because I feel like it has not made any waves in security at all. If people know, if you're doing research on that or you know of stuff, it'd be awesome. And they did a great job with security as far as we know, but I don't feel like it's been really battle tested against the security research community. If it has, we haven't seen it. I haven't seen it publicized, but I could not be looking hard enough.
It'd also be a major shift for the endpoint security vendors, too.
Yeah.
If a lot of this stuff was running on a Chrome OS and we moved away from traditional Windows machines and or Mac OS, what Parallels did for the Mac, they replicate something similar at the Chrome OS level, and you see a big adoption of Chrome OS out there. The attack surface shifts, some of the technologies will have to shift in order to keep up. Because the Chrome OS works a little differently. To your point, though, there will also be a lot more scrutiny on the operating system.
Right, which I think is a good thing because I think people are running around. I mean, I've literally read articles that are like, "Oh, you're secure if you use Chrome OS." Like, wait, what? Like, no, that doesn't make you secure just because you use a different operating system. I mean, it's essentially Linux under the covers. I'm not sure what changes they've made, or I haven't looked into the underpinnings of it, but very.
It's like saying if you're using Apple iOS, you're secure.
Yeah. But, what's interesting, for my wedding anniversary, I bought my wife a new laptop because, I mean, she's been married to me for a while now, and she expects that kind of thing. She's like, really, a laptop? I'm like, but it's pink. It's a new Google Pixel Book, and it's pink. Like, it's awesome. And I'm like, it's got a Core i7 in it. And she's like, really? 16 gigs of RAM, sweetie. It's awesome. But they gave me a free copy of like WebRoot or something. And I'm like, I looked into it, I'm like, I don't think WebRoot goes on a Chromebook. I haven't actually like gone to their site and looked, but it did say in like the email that it was for PCs and Macs. I'm like, but I didn't buy a PC or Mac. I bought a Pixel Book. So I thought that was kind of weird. So I guess you put that on one of your other computers? I don't know. I thought it was weird. But to your point, Matt, like, okay, what do I put on a Chromebook if,
Right. And just so you know, after 26 years of marriage, I can't buy my wife a MacBook or a PC. It just does not fly.
Yeah, so you got to set that precedent early.
Yeah, right. Trips to Europe or cars or something. I mean, come on. She's had to put up with me for a long time.
This is true. And they're still with us amazingly. Where else did you want to go in terms of stories?
Well, this week is full of app user and data stories.
Yep.
So, I mean,
acquisitions in there too. I didn't see any. Yeah. You didn't have any additions, right?
No, I did not.
I got the acquisitions. That's good.
Yeah, in the one funding announcement, Salt Security.
Yeah, Salt Security. API
so Salt Security, API Security, right? To the application discussion. A Series B, 20 million. So now they have 30 million total in. We've seen these guys. We've briefed with them before. I don't remember if they've been on the show before, Paul, yet or not. Anyways, I know we've been talking to them. But API security is a big part of application security. So great for them. They are. I didn't realize this when I read the article, Paul, that the CheckPoint is part of their funding source, which is interesting. Yeah, because then CheckPoint. Yep.
Well,
sorry.
I was just going to say the debate we're having with API security, is it all that different from application security? And what I really think we're coming to, and I mean the Salt guys are doing great stuff. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, we briefed with them, and it's really cool stuff. But I think we're starting to see fatigue in the number of tools that I need in my SDLC and CI/CD pipeline, right? So like I need some kind of source control. I need some kind of linting and static analysis. I need a Docker registry. I need a build automation tool like Jenkins or something similar. I need an API security tool. I need an SCA, software composition analysis, binary analysis. I need a DAST, which we're going to talk about, an IS. Yeah. I'm like, hold on, how many things do I need to secure my application now? I think is similar to how we've got into fatigue on the agent side. We're seeing fatigue on the securing the CI/CD pipeline, basically, and the development process.
Yeah, we touched on this a little bit in our panel discussion yesterday for InfoSec World, but you're right. There's a lot of different tools coming in. What I expect to happen at some point is we'll see some consolidation.
Synopsys has done a larger company that's done some of that consolidation and done it very well. I mean, I've seen aspects of their offerings, and I was impressed with a few like what I thought were killer features, right? In Synopsys, we did a webcast. Go back to and watch that. I was like, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're bringing stuff right into the IDE to make it easier to look for static code analysis issues and or software composition, right? That's two different products for most organizations that's been integrated into the IDE.
Well, yeah, because then you got container security, container scanning, and then you got container runtime. It's like, what? Oh, yeah. Then container visibility, right? And then, WAF, because I would have Signal Sciences protecting my, in fact, we did use it for our own application, and it's awesome, right? But again, it comes back to I'm managing all of these tools. Right now, I think that's where it's at. That's where you're going to have to be, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yep, and then you got CheckPoint launching CloudGuard, Cloud Native Security.
I thought this was a great move for CheckPoint, by the way. We've seen the CheckPoints and Palo Altos of the world, I mean, truly making a pivot, which is ridiculously hard for companies this size, Matt, to make this pivot, right? Because we kind of pick on Fortinet for not making some of those same, or at least not evangelizing it enough about the pivots, right?
Yeah, in the case of CheckPoint, they've moved their pivot's primarily been a single pivot into the app cloud side of the house, right, with the Dome 9 acquisition and some other application security acquisitions. So you're starting to see that roll together, I think, in this CloudGuard offering, which includes, I'm pretty sure, the Dome 9 acquisition for validating cloud configurations and other pieces. In the case of Palo Alto, which we've talked about multiple times, they did it to the app cloud side, but then they also did a bunch on the detection response side. So they kind of did they kind of trifurcated. They didn't bifurcate. They kind of did it three ways, I guess. Trifurcated.
We've seen the same pivots in vulnerability management as well. Rapid7 made some awesome pivots and acquisitions to create their platform, which is far more than just vulnerability management. Qualys has made similar pivots. Tenable, I think, still holds strong in vulnerability management. Largely, I think we were talking yesterday about the passive vulnerability scanner. Like, that's still pretty awesome, right? Like, I still want that in my network because you can easily miss stuff.
Yes. Let's see. And then Digital Shadows announces new capabilities to identify and remediate unwanted code exposure. So this looks like it's tapping into your source code repositories, I think is where this is going, Paul. But I was trying to figure out, it's unauthorized commit alert service within Searchlight, looking for unauthorized commits to code. So again, back to the application side, Here's another component, right? Because now I got to look at my source code repositories and look for commits and who's committing, and are they valid commits or is it a malicious commit? Oh my gosh.
Right. Well, and I think this is very much an enterprise play, right? If you're looking to manage and alert on commits, you need software to help you with that. Think about how many commits a day large software companies. All right, so let's go one of the largest ones like Microsoft. Would I say they employed like something like 50,000 plus developers or something like that? There's like millions of lines of code being written every day. They probably already, I can almost like guarantee they have something like that in place already, right? And then as you start to trickle down, there's a lot of enterprises that are going to benefit from this level of insight into your commits. Because even with 100 developers, you're still got a lot of commits per day, hopefully, if they're running code, which they should be, and committing it, which is important too. Then you get to the smaller side. I don't think it quite applies, but it is an interesting service. And I thought actually it was more on unwanted code exposure, like where else could my code be on the internet? I'm not sure if that's a component for the attack surface management. I think it is a feature in some of the attack surface management vendors. Like, did someone else spin up a copy of my website somewhere, right? And we've seen JScrambler was a company we did like a mini briefing with that was basically like linting your JavaScript and obscuring it. So if it was copied, it was protecting it. So, that's a different problem, because your code is essentially out there being loaded in the browser. And all indications are it's going to continue that way on the segments that we've done, especially recently, right? Your applications are going to live in the browser, and they're likely, like it or not, be JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
Largely.
These days, yes, largely the case. Otherwise, you're still running, Flash or something, and we know all the vulnerabilities in Adobe. So
yeah, let's hope it's not Flash, right?
Right. Let's see. BeyondTrust announces integration with SailPoint. I think, look, I've been saying this for how many years now? I want to see movement in the identity space. I want to see these capabilities come together. You've got a privileged access vendor like BeyondTrust, and we're going to talk about CyberArk next, integrating more closely with SailPoint, which is more of a broader identity platform. And so instead of having 3 or 4 or 5 different solutions, we're starting to see some, at least from an integration perspective. I think we're going to see more of this. I'm wondering if this is a precursor to an acquisition at some point, because I could see the Pings and the SailPoints of the world, acquiring or building some of these privileged access capabilities into their platforms. And so you start with a partnership. Maybe this turns into an acquisition. I think this is a smart move. And we've seen this from CyberArk too. CyberArk buying additional capabilities, which we talked about a few weeks ago. Now they're coming out with Alero, which enhances some of the security aspects on the mobile devices. So again, we're starting to see some of these moves in identity that I've wanted to see for years, which is these identity providers providing more and more capabilities across the spectrum instead of trying to piece together 3, 4, 5 different solutions.
But I get the sense that the integrations between multi-factor, single sign-on, identity management, privilege management are pretty strong. Like there's some, you can tie those together, I think, pretty tightly. Where compared to, I've got multiple agents on my endpoint and all these tools in my CI/CD pipeline. To me, that's much harder to integrate and tie together, right? I think of my CI/CD pipeline. Stringing all of those tools together is a real pain in the butt. On the identity side, from folks I've talked with that are doing it, right, it seems like the integrations are much more seamless and easier.
Yeah, they're there, definitely, without a doubt, Paul. But you still have to manage multiple vendors and multiple relationships to solve the same problem, which is providing authentication and access for identities, whether it's humans or machines or whatever. Why can't we streamline and simplify some of that instead of having these really complex integrated architectures? You're right, they work, but I'm just saying there's an opportunity for somebody to come in and make it a lot more seamless out of the box instead of trying to pull all this stuff together.
I found when that happens is the features get diluted, right? The more things and features that one vendor takes on and functionality, the more it can become diluted, right? Whereas if you go into one of those subcategories and pull one of the best players out, you get a much more feature-rich product. And sure, you have to integrate it, but you get, I think, better features and functionality traditionally. And I guess it's somewhat of an unfair comparison, right? Cisco's really the ones that have tried to do that more often than not, and like bundling things for free. And so, I'm back in the day, they would sell to the network and security teams and try and solve everyone's problem. And, either camp would look at what was being bundled and we're like, yeah, that's like basically like not even usable, or it's like doesn't even have enough features for me to warrant the effort to implement it, right?
Yeah. Let's see. There's a couple more in here in my stack. All right. Transcend raises $25 million to capture the entire data privacy market.
Wow, the whole thing.
That's a pretty bold statement.
With $25 million in Series A funding, they're capturing the entire privacy market. Wow.
Yeah.
That's bold.
That's what I thought too. I'm like, that's super bold. It's a pretty bold statement. You only got $25 million.
Right. I mean, to tackle the problem they're tackling, they need more than $25 million. That's all I'm saying. I mean, they do have some strong backers. I mean, SL is a strong, VC firm, of course, but.
Yeah, they got great backers here. Phil Venables from Goldman's in here. Yeah. I mean, there's some interesting people in this round. And look, we know this is a challenge, but to build out an entire end-to-end encryption privacy infrastructure needs way more than $25 million. I'm just saying it now, right? I've been there. I've helped try to build some of these solutions. I've talked to people that were trying to build these new architectures and infrastructures. $25 million's a drop in the bucket, guys.
So their opportunity is to build a data infrastructure that fully manages personal data, no matter where it's stored: databases, SaaS tools, warehouses, vendors, everywhere else.
Yeah,
they must have some pretty good secret sauce. I mean, because a $25 million Series A is nothing to shake a stick at either, right? I mean, that's not
right. It's just we're going to see additional rounds for a technology like this to continue to gain traction and build momentum, just because it costs a lot of money to build these types of solutions.
Yep, agreed.
Let's see.
Acquisitions?
Well, there was one more raise in here.
There's raises.
Australian enterprise cybersecurity firm Casada raises $10 million. I think that's a Series B, maybe. I can't remember. I got it.
It is Series B.
Series B. This is bot management, so they're going up against the people like Google Cloud and some of those guys a little bit. There's been a whole evolution in bot management.
But there's been some consolidation, and based on the fraud that was a result of COVID-19 and the global pandemic, there were an increase in certain types of fraud that I started looking into some of the bot management, the bot detection rather, companies, right? And so Impervabot, Distill, there's been a lot of consolidation in that space.
Yeah, Shape Security was acquired by, I think, F5.
Were they acquired? Yeah, they were acquired by F5. You're right. Yep. That was another one. And of course, Google built we have a webcast tomorrow to talk about what Google has built, which again, feeding the machine learning with the data they have, I think gives them, I mean, not to say it's an unfair advantage, but an awesome advantage, I think, in the market. And there was a couple other players. There's still a couple independents like Casada left, and good for them for taking a funding round. That's awesome. I mean, anyone with a public-facing website that requires people to especially log in is going to need this technology. So the addressable market is huge for this technology. Yeah. And not something you can easily do yourself, unless you want to bug your users with the free capture from Google. But we all know how much they hate the free cap, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, right? That user friction versus security.
Exactly. And then there was one acquisition. IBM buys Spinugo, I think is how you say it, Span Ugo. So this is similar to Cloud Needy in the Zscaler acquisition.
Yep.
And other acquisitions we've seen with Redlock and Evident.io, et cetera. This is bringing some of that cloud configuration compliance capabilities into IBM Cloud. IBM's still trying to build out a cloud offering, right? I mean, when you look at the top three, we know who the big players are. IBM and Oracle are still building out cloud platforms for their client base. This is creating some enhancements, obviously, for their specific IBM cloud.
And so that's different from
like this get acquired.
Different from OpenShift.
Yes.
Isn't that that's Red Hat, which is
Red Hat.
IBM?
Well, they bought
right?
So IBM bought Red Hat, which includes OpenShift, but IBM already had their own cloud.
OpenShift also is based on CoreOS, right? That's
CoreOS,
that's all.
Claire. They brought in some of the Kubernetes stuff. They're more OpenShift is really competing with what
like Heroku.
Who bought Docker?
Yeah.
With Docker Enterprise. Who bought that? Mantis.
Yeah.
Mantis bought it.
Okay.
So now OpenShift from Red Hat and Mantis, which is the old Docker Enterprise solutions, are more competitive, and that's
like a place to host your containers, basically, right?
Yes, and build out the pipeline and all the pieces to get those applications deployed.
Interesting, but that's not their play here, right? IBM Cloud is. I mean, they need a cloud to host all of that other, OpenShift, right? But then they have an expansive cloud, basically, that they're trying to build out to compete with Amazon, Microsoft, and Google.
So if you think what IBM's trying to do is be in the cloud application space, right? So they've got IBM Cloud, they've got their infrastructure there, but then you've got Red Hat, which is really the orchestration components to get applications onto IBM Cloud and other clouds, by the way. But I think they're really trying to make some shifts in embracing this whole cloud application environment. Maybe a little late, but IBM's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But they're competing with big cloud providers now, and so.
But OpenShift is pretty awesome from what I told. We've only done like one interview with someone that worked closely with that technology, so we should probably cover it a little more because I think it's more popular than if you listen to the show, it's more popular than I think we lead on when we talk about containers and orchestration.
Just to give you an idea. OpenShift's revenue stream back when I was at Layered Insight a couple years ago was more than all of Docker's revenue. Yeah.
Yeah. So the big enterprises, that's when they want to do containers, that's what they're doing. And when that happens, my guess is it's probably a lot of large financials, and they're not talking about what their security architecture is for obvious reasons, right? Governments too, right? Yeah. But hopefully we can peel back some of the layers there and do some segments on there. So. What was the other? Oh, Salt Security we talked about. CyberArk. Did we talk about We didn't really talk about CyberArk, did we?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I pulled it into my
Alero. What is Alero then?
It's for mobile devices. It's for
yeah. Gotcha. Cool. Open source threat hunting. I like open source.
I missed that one.
Stamus Networks announced general availability for STELKS, the turnkey system based on Suricata. And network security monitoring. So I think open source is definitely very prominent in the IDS threat hunting network kind of telemetry space still. I mean, a lot of enterprises are using Zeek, and there's a lot of stuff on the open source side. I feel like that is an area inside of enterprises where you can make the most out of open source, right? And not necessarily have to just jump right into a commercial solution. I think you can kind of grow and integrate with your other commercial solutions because there's just some great stuff in open source for that. I think largely because the Linux kernel and the ability to collect packets is so good. I don't know how I got on that. I was reading about BPF and AF packet, and I got down a rat hole of Linux capabilities. We need to do a whole webcast on that.
Plus, a lot of the technologies embedded in here are actually using the commercial tools anyways. They're just adding commercial features on top of Suricata and the entire ELK stack. So these are like the core foundational components that even the commercial tools are leveraging to build out their commercial solutions. So this is a great place to start for most people because you're going to learn the fundamentals of what's even in the commercial products. Most of them anyways.
Yeah, I'm having, in the webcast I want to do, it really comes down to hardening Linux. And I was reading about Linux capabilities, and we've talked about BPF as it applies to containers to gain insight into containers. And it's more than just about packets. And then it started into the Linux capabilities and like mapping those. So like AF packet allows you to create raw packets, and that's mapped to a capability. And I was like, oh yeah, that's why I need to be root when I run nmap, because when it has to create raw packets. I'm like, I bet I could just grant it the capabilities and then I wouldn't have to become root. Lo and behold, there's an article on nmap's wiki site, and with literally one command, I was like, oh, I don't need to be root. I'm like, that's kind of a security hole I just opened up on my system, so I may back it out, but now I don't have to use sudo to run it. So in these granular controls, I think are really interesting when we talk about container security, Matt. Some of the things we talked about in our panel discussion in the beginning.
Yep. Yeah.
And that will round out the stories for this week. Stay tuned. Farah Mavatuna coming up next.